Thank you for joining the WDW News Today podcast. I'm Eric Morton, and today I have an incredible guest. I mean, people have asked about this for a very long time. Oh my God, no way, it's Nick. Nick LoCicero, what are you doing
Me?
here?
Oh, it's me. How you doing?
I thought you were Taylor Swift. Someone told me Taylor Swift was coming on the show.
I mean, people thought it was Poppy, your little puppy, and
she does have a lot to say.
I feel I'm disappointing some people out there, but hopefully I can make for an entertaining podcast. I don't know. We'll see.
If you're not familiar with Nick LoCicero, for a number of years, he has been the co-host, his name's on the sign, of WDW News Tonight, starring Tom Corliss and Nick LoCicero.
You don't know how many times I've checked to make sure my name was still there because I was like, all right, I think I just pissed Tom off this week. Like, I have to make sure my name is still on the logo. And, like, literally, I'm not kidding you. We had a phone call one day, and I was like, you're calling to let me go, aren't you? And he's like, no, your name is on the logo. You're like part of the show.
We can't afford to change the logo. You have to stay.
I know. I was like, whew.
I mean, I've used that before. They're like, where's the game? Like, Nick's providing a game. I was like, I don't know. Why are you asking me?
Yeah.
My name's not on this sign. There's no logo with Eric Morton on it.
Oh, my goodness. I've skated by so much around here.
Oh, but it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
So
it's
good to see you, especially since we're not doing news tonight for a while.
It's good to be here.
I thought maybe I wouldn't see you for as long as I won't see Tom, but no, here you are.
You didn't care.
I walked into a brewery and there you were, and I said, Nick, would you like to go film the podcast with me sometime? And you're like, yeah, when? I was like, what are you doing in like 5 minutes? And so that's how we're here.
And I'm here. You found me at the brewery. Right. That's where I am. That's where I normally am. So
I feel
how you been doing?
I owe you an apology because on last week's podcast, I couldn't name the town where you live, which is weird because it's a town that has been in the local vernacular for years and years.
Mount Dora.
Mount Dora. So remember that, folks. Commit it to memory. Nick lives in Mount Dora.
It's a great little town.
So mothers, lock up your daughters in Mount Dora. Here comes Nick.
Mount Dora is a great little town. Mount Dora is like, so it has this like kind of quaint downtown.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of different breweries, lounges, places to eat, places to hang out. I love Mount Dora. And I live like a couple minutes from downtown.
It's changed a lot, too, in the last several years, right?
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, I was in Brooksville, and I'm kind of in like a little redneck town, right?
Yeah.
And then we're playing Mount Dora in soccer. I was like, oh, we're traveling out to play against some country bumpkins in Mount Dora. And now Mount Dora's like this hip, like, they got all these like,
right?
It's like this bohemian hip type of place with bookstores and coffee shops and a fake Nautilus bar,
right?
That doesn't have a liquor license.
Don't get me started. No, let's not bash them. They're trying their best. So
no, liquor license is very expensive.
It's very expensive. So you're right. Like, it was the middle of nowhere for a long time, and now, and luckily I kind of bought in early, and now I'm in this area that is like this growing area just north of Orlando. Has great it really does. It has a great community. Has a great like food and drink and culture and stuff like that. And yes, it has a fake Nautilus bar that doesn't have a liquor license, but they're doing their best, and they have a great atmosphere. That's like it's
I
like
go there.
Argonaut up in Leesburg. It's not actually in Mount Dora.
It's in Leesburg.
It's in Leesburg. Yeah. Yeah, it's called Argonaut.
How close is this to like the villages?
Plug.
Do you get business from all the people in the villages?
Oh, totally. So the villages is the same like drive to Orlando. So it's like, all right, do I want to go to Orlando and deal with all the traffic, or do I want to go shopping up in the villages? And I'll just go to the villages, right? Like why not? Like,
it's weird because the people in the villages are like the opposite end of the spectrum. You're like target age range, right? People you like to hang out with.
Right. I'm not looking for a date in the villages, but I am looking for, it's a good time. It really is. It's like they have really cool like movie theaters. They have really cool like places to eat. They have everything that you want, like shopping wise.
They
Like
have 40 plus golf courses.
oh, I know. I love golfing.
My friend
Yeah.
Mike was my roommate when I was stationed in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
Yeah.
And we're still very close.
Yeah.
His dad lives in the Villages, and I went to like do a cookout there one time, and I couldn't because I had an idea in my head of what the Villages was.
Yeah, right. I know everybody does. Everybody does.
And no, I'm driving down this street, not for a minute or two,
yeah.
for miles.
Yeah.
And there's nothing but golf courses on both sides of the road. And then I would pull into a village.
Yeah.
And it was like downtown Celebration.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm downtown. They're like, which one? Like, I'm lost.
It's a good
Which one? I'm like, I don't know. And I tell them, they're like, no, we're in this one. There's like, how many downtowns like that are there in the Villages? I don't know how many. A bunch.
It's a bunch.
And everyone's cruising their golf carts?
Yeah. So if anybody's familiar with Celebration, the Villages are like a Celebration. Like all those little downtown-y type areas with the little shops and the little like, all right, let's park our car and then walk around to the little area. It is community. It is great. Like, I'm not going to diss it just because it's like an older community. Like, I know it gets made fun of, but like living within that range, like, sorry, I'm going to the Villages for an easier, like, experience than necessarily going to Orlando. I'm sorry, but like, that's what I'm doing.
I didn't expect the podcast to go in this direction.
I love it. Yeah. Let's retire to the Villages.
Is the Villages also Lady Lake? Does that count as the Villages?
I think that's the same kind of area. I think. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you're in our audience and you're of that age, where you're thinking of like, I need a retirement place. What you'll find online is a lot of like joking about the Villages. I think.
Yeah.
About like there was a story that broke, I don't know, 15 years ago about stuff that was sort of sensationalized that wasn't necessarily true, but was like the observation of one person that turned out to maybe only be a nugget of truth to it about the Villages and sexually transmitted diseases and whatever. And so it became like national news of like a funny ha-ha moment where you could like talk about the what's going on in the Villages. It sounded like a swingers resort. That's not what's happening at the Villages, right? But I agree. Hey, it's probably not cheap to live in the Villages.
It's
but
a nice little place.
Nice. Florida's friendliest hometown.
Come on, if I could have a few drinks right around the golf cart and just hang out, like I'm sorry, I'm there. I don't know.
You're a simple man, Nick.
I am a simple man. But yeah, no, I do like going to Orlando too. But you know, if I had the choice of like where I'm going north, not south from Mount Dora.
But what are the odds that I walk into Celebration Brewing Company during lunch today? It's their soft opening period,
right?
And not only is Pete Carney there, but there's Nick LoCicero walking in the door.
Look. I've been waiting for this place for 3 years now. I signed up to be one of their founding members like 3 years ago. Been waiting for this place to open. It was exciting to go there. Great beer. Minutes from the studio. This is just a dream come true. This is what I want, Eric. This is what I wanted. I wanted Tom to open this giant studio where I could come and have no responsibility, just fool around and do my thing,
and then go to the brewery
right down the street. Like pre news tonight, I could go have a drink. After news tonight, maybe I can knock on the door and say, "Hey, can you open up? Can I have another
drink? Do you have anything left?"
Yeah, do you have anything left? Let's have another drink. Look, this is great. It's right down the street, and I can't ask for anything better. This is my dream come true, Eric. Where I could go have some beer, then go talk Disney, and then pass out somewhere. This is great. This is great.
This sounds dangerous.
Yeah, this is great.
I don't mean like the Disney part, like you're gonna go drink a beer and then go to sounds dangerous. I mean, this lifestyle sounds potentially dangerous.
I mean, it's once a week. It's Thursday.
Yeah.
Look, it's once a week.
I'm with you. I'm very excited. For those of you that bought tickets to Stage 89 or heard about it, we had one event on Friday night of Stage 89 that was a meet and greet with the Imagineers.
Yeah.
So I'll recap it quickly. Long story short, the brewery, Celebration Brewing Company, was supposed to be open, I mean, a long time ago. A very long time ago. The shirts they were selling at the brewery said since 2021.
Yeah.
And they're soft opening right now. It's 2024. So they said, oh, no problem, we'll be open, I think, by March 1st. Then it turned to April. And then May, they finally found out they couldn't get all the inspections and permits and certificate of occupancy, all the stuff that's required to do this in time for our event. So we're like, oh, crap, what do we do? We ended up finding a tap truck that came in to save the day. But I'm so glad that it's open now because it's just one more place to go. There's another brewery nearby, like near my house. I live in Windermere, which is north of here. Like my whole commute is World Drive. So basically, I drive past there and I get to my house, and then the closest brewery to there is New York Beer Project in Winter Garden, which is kind of like, I think it's like a cool looking spot. I think some of their food is good. Their beer is okay. There's something about it that it
misses the mark.
Doesn't feel right. Yeah. So we have that. So I'm glad. The WIGS are joining us right now. We're recording this live. It's Friday. This won't come out till Tuesday. So the WIGS get to get a head start on everybody and get a preview. They'll get to see the stuff that we edit out, which will probably be a lot considering Nick's current condition.
Wait, what?
I don't know. What are you drinking?
Well, whatever I found in Jake's booth back there.
If you would like to become a WIGS member or even learn more about it, you go to patreon.com/WDWNT. And for as little as $2 a month, I think it's $7 a month, you get to watch these live. You get post shows on News Tonight and some of these other things. Also, since I'm promoting stuff right now, obviously you've seen our Tower of Terror shirt that's made of this very similar material to this with our friends at Park Candy. For the Tower of Terror shirt, you can go to shop.wdwnt.com or is it wdwnt.shop, Jake? I don't know. Either way, or you can go to wdwnt.link/Tip Top, the Tip Top Club shirt inspired by the Tower of Terror. And I'm wearing Park Candy today, this light, breathable, four-way stretch, comfy shirt with, this is called Boogie's Casino. It might remind you of Nightmare Before Christmas or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Nick, you're just wearing a... Look, he didn't know he was going to run into me.
I didn't know.
He didn't wear the uniform.
I would have wore Park Candy.
It's all right. I'll even undo a button if I need to chill out, be like down to your level. But
wait, what?
Here we are.
Down to my level?
I know it's weird. Right? Look,
down to
I'm
my
getting shorter.
level?
My chair's sinking. You're kind of a short guy.
I'm a very short guy. Are there things you actually cut out of this show? Because I do listen to the audio version of the show.
Oh, yeah, we cut stuff out sometimes.
Really? All
so
right,
you wouldn't believe the stuff that we cut out when you see the amount of crap we'll keep.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, I know, right? All right. Well, no, that makes me feel better because I was like, all right, this is so impromptu. What am I going to talk about? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I say things? So anything I say that you guys like are like, no, they can't.
After the show, you can send a message to Billy and be like, yo, that part when I said that my hero growing up was O.J. Simpson, can you please cut that out? I don't know. But anyway, we could do that if you need to. But the WIGS get to see it all. So that's what they're here for. We may go to them for Q&A and the Discord, or WIGS Cord as we call it. There's a lot of action in there right now.
So I've been excited. No, I was just going to say, I like, all right, you guys launched this podcast. So my history with WDWNT, like I was always like, all right, the podcasts are too like talky, long, ooh, they wander all over the place. Eric, since you've been hosting this podcast, like it is like, I love it. Like,
thank you.
You keep it on track. You as best you can. You may not think so, but like in the history of WDWNT podcasts, like you keep it on track. Like it is like I love it because it is like I know it's going to be kind of contained. Like and I really enjoy listening to it. So I just want to give you credit. Like I love the way you host.
Toast to you with my Topo Chico lime with mint.
I'm toasting you with whatever's down here. Let's see. Larceny Barrel Proof Bourbon. All right, that's what I'm doing.
All right, so Nick does a segment on News Tonight called Liquid Magic.
I do.
So the concept of Liquid Magic is that Nick and his partners, whoever he has with him, Sabrina.
Partner du jour.
Myself,
Michelle, Pete Carney, and now Sabrina.
Yeah. They will teach you how to make concoctions that you can find at your favorite resorts and
Yeah.
parks and places throughout Walt Disney World,
Yeah.
right? And it looks like what you're mixing today is just larceny barrel proof and ice. Is that
Oh, I don't have ice.
no ice? Just he's missing.
I don't have
He's
ice.
mixing larceny barrel proof bourbon and air.
Eric,
I have some ice in here.
you don't want to. Eric, this is a masterpiece. You don't want to put ice in this.
I'm gonna put ice in it because, like, I like to keep it cool.
Oops.
This is already a disaster. I'm partially regretting this, and I partially love that we did this.
All right.
How many? What proof is this?
Oh, it's a lot of proof.
125.
124.
124.2. Larceny barrel proof. There you go.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff we just have laying around our office. Mostly in the production booth where Jake
No,
is right now. In
look.
Jake's cave, we have it.
I would say so. Eric, you are a bourbon connoisseur.
I'm more a bourbon appreciator than
Appreciator.
a connoisseur.
I'd go the same way.
Right.
Same thing. So I don't like ice in my bourbon. You seem to like ice. Like what?
Right.
What is the?
I like ice in everything.
Okay.
So I talked about it on
I'm
news
not talking
today.
down to you, by the
right.
way.
No,
I
no.
don't like.
I know that
people
the
like
way
their
that like
things.
if you're
Right.
like a bourbon like connoisseur or snob or whatever, that you're gonna want to put it in one of those like Glencairn glasses
Love those.
and
Yeah,
swirl it around and put it on the nose.
Do you
and
not
then
do
put-
that at all?
Sometimes I will do that. But generally speaking, I don't. Generally speaking, I just like something that's easy sipping, and if it gets cold in the process, maybe even a little watered down. Sometimes the water can like open it up a little
does.
bit.
Yeah.
So what I would say is the more expensive the bourbon, the more likely I am to drink it neat.
Okay.
And like most like moderate bourbons to cheap bourbons, I'll just drink them on the rocks. I don't know what this costs, so I might be disrespecting your bourbon.
No.
By doing it. What's a $80 bottle or something like that? Barrel- I
Probably
don't
close to 100. I don't,
so yeah. So like that's a fine line, right? If I get like Weller 12, so I'll tell you this. I went to the Bourbon Trail a couple years ago in
Yeah.
Kentucky. If you can't tell, by the way, we don't have a main topic of the show today. We're just gonna go and see where this goes.
If you want to
So-
find out more about Nick, just let me know.
yeah, we will find more about more out about you. So I would go to the Bourbon Trail, and most of the time I drink, like I said, my bourbon on the rocks. Look,
Yeah.
I came for years when I first turned 21 and stuff. I was in the Marine Corps traveling around. Is beer, Jack and Coke,
Right.
like basic stuff. And then I got on a bourbon thing in like, let's say it was 2015, 2016. But I prefer it on the rocks because sometimes it can get harsh or sometimes it's just not enjoyable if it's a little too hot, got a little heat on it, whatever. So, and I don't want to say, can you give me bourbon and 2 drops of water? That's weird, right? So I'd
Well,
rather
it
just have
depends
the
on where
ice
you
and
are, but
control it.
yeah.
I like the big ice cubes. It makes it feel special, whatever. But when I went to Wild Turkey, my impression of Wild Turkey Distillery was the cheap wild turkey that like my grandfather kept in his golf bag to hide from my grandma, right? That he would drink on the golf course with his buddies, like cheap bourbon, Jim Beam, like a Jim Beam type of bourbon, right?
Right.
And when I went there, they have several other bourbons that are more high end than that. And I found one, and when we did the tasting, of course, it's not. They will give you a little thing with little ice cubes if you want, like the little tiny, what we called like rabbit turd. Can I say rabbit turd? On the
Sure.
The little ice cubes. They'll give you a couple of those to put in there if you wanted to, right? So I'm drinking bourbon at Wild Turkey, and I'm tasting all these different ones. And one of them, all of a sudden, I was like, that is the best bourbon. I think it was a Russell's Reserve single barrel 10-year.
Okay.
Right. Also, Kentucky Spirit is a really good Wild Turkey one. They have a couple others that are really good. So I go, man, that's the best bourbon I think I've ever had. It kind of tastes like butterscotch. It tastes like bourbon candy, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you like barbecue and then you eat a really good burnt end and you're like, oh, this is so
that's
much
it.
better than regular brisket. A burnt
Right.
end tastes like barbecue candy, right?
Yep.
So I was like, that is amazing. And then I went home and I bought a bottle of it. I went home and I drank it on the rocks. I was like, it actually wasn't as good on the rocks as it was when it was neat. So there are certain flavor profiles that you do miss if you put it on the rocks.
Yeah.
But there's also certain flavor profiles that you miss if you just drink it neat. I think it just kind of depends.
I
And you
agree.
experiment. You try it a couple different ways. So my
100%.
first drink from a bottle usually is on the rocks. And then occasionally I'll be like, let me take just a little sipper of that.
See, that's where I was going with that. My first sip of any bourbon has to be neat. Like, I want to go neat first and then on the rocks. And then usually what I do is add a couple drops of water.
Yeah.
See if that plays with the flavor a little bit, and then I go on the rocks potentially if I want to. With this one, I probably want a couple drops of water, but I mean, this one I would not dilute with an ice cube. This one is like
It's pretty hot. It's pretty hot.
it was amazing.
Can I tell you,
So-
I was at a Disney bar. Oh, go. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, this one like is very fruity, very like
I like it.
it's really really good. A little bit of caramel in there. I like that one a lot.
It's good. I like
Yeah,
it.
Disney barbecue.
I was at a Disney bar recently.
Oh, bar.
And there was a guy. He was a nice enough guy, but you ever go somewhere and someone just strikes up a conversation with you, and you're like, well, that's kind of weird,
Yeah.
right? I don't.
Well,
It's one thing if you're sitting together, somebody says something to the bartender, you go, yeah, I know," you know. But this guy,
Yeah.
like, I'm just sitting there, and the guy just kind of walks up, and he's like, hey, what's going on? So sometimes that
Right.
does happen to me because of my job. People
'Cause
say, like, I've
yeah,
seen you on
people know
YouTube
you.
or
Yeah.
something like that. But a guy just, like, sits down and starts talking to me. I'm like, okay. And then he goes, I'm here. My wife is down at the pool with our 2-year-old, all this stuff. And I'm like, okay. He goes, well, I don't understand why you bring a 2-year-old to Disney, right? They won't remember it.
okay.
And what I was thinking is like, well, that might be true. And I could see where if it's the only time you're ever going to be able to take your kids to Disney, you might want to wait until they can remember it. But also, like, don't you like watching your kid have fun and have a good time? So I think a 2-year-old, you can still watch them have fun and have a good time.
Yeah. Oh, my
But it's
first
like,
visit
but you
was
take
two.
them there and then they won't remember it. And all I'm thinking is this guy is so drunk. He's drinking bourbon.
Yeah.
I was like, he's having a good time, and he won't remember it either. But here he is, like going to the bar, you know, drinking
Yeah.
whatever barrel-proof
That's
bourbon.
funny.
And I'm like, you know, are we really that different from 2-year-olds? You know, you just want to have a good time in the moment. You might not remember all of those.
No, we are not that different from 2-year-olds, Eric.
I don't know if you know this. I was once a 2-year-old.
No, we just want we just want to have a good time. That's all we want. And I mean, the first time I was at Disney, I was 2 years old, and
Me too.
I don't remember a single thing.
I remember one thing. I've said this, I'm
We have
sure,
pictures,
dozens of
but-
times. I remember one thing, and it was the pirate scene on Pirates of the Caribbean. And it's with me
Yeah.
my whole life. If you go in my office right now here, there's a big painting of it, that scene
Yeah.
on my wall, because that is the one thing that I remember. That's one of my first memories. That, and then wearing race car pajamas and my brother and I racing around the house. That was, those are the 2 memories I have from when I was like 2.
Yeah.
The rest of them, I think they don't start till I was like probably 3 or 4.
No, I always told Tom my earliest memories were always sound related, not visuals, but sound related. Like I always, like my earliest memories, I remember the music. Like it's the music at the parks that get me, and that's I don't know, like I can't. Like I literally can't pinpoint my earliest memory. Like I have a notoriously bad memory. Like, so, you know, people say that they remember stuff when they were a little kid and stuff like that. Like, as far as Disney goes, I don't remember stuff till I was like almost a teenager. And I know we came like almost every year since I was 2. So, like, I all I can remember are the sounds. And like the sounds is what triggers my memories and my emotions.
Yeah, I think I'm more visual. I remember my first time at Disney World. Now I'm a teenager at this point. I was about 15 the first time I came to Disney World. They still had the Skyway.
Yeah. Oh, I remember the Skyway.
So
for
I
sure.
remember standing in line at the
Yeah.
Tomorrowland Skyway station,
Yeah.
and the cast member working there loading people onto it was dancing like Michael Jackson and like spinning around in between, like as people were coming up, and like he was making a show out of the whole
Yeah.
thing. I remember that more than anything else that visit.
That's great. My thing with the Skyway is I don't know exactly what year it was completely shut down or like taken offline or whatever, but I remember like I remember loving the Skyway when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I remember coming to Disney for college, like when I came to college, because back up. I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in Connecticut. Came down to UCF to go to college. And we always came down to Disney for family trips. But when I moved to UCF, I was like, oh, cool, I go to Disney all the time. And I remember going, and the Skyway wasn't there anymore. Like, it wasn't operating, or it was seasonal or something like that. Like, I don't remember when it really shut down, but like, were you looking at, or I don't know.
No, I was looking at WIGS score. I wanted to Google when the Skyway shut down, and I realized it's not that important.
I mean,
Tom
it
was about that date off, but anyone at home that cares
90s,
is already Googling
right?
it while they're watching
I think late 90s. I mean, that's when I came here to go to college. I think that's when it happened. But
So you grew up in Connecticut.
Yeah.
So I know this for a fact that you're a hardcore, like, New England sports fan.
Yeah.
Aren't most people in Connecticut, like, New York fans? Is Connecticut?
No.
Is that a blurry line between?
Connecticut's the line, right? Like, so half of Connecticut is Yankee and Met fans, Giant fans, Jet fans. The other half is Boston, Celtics, Red Sox, right? So it really depends. When you live up there, it really depends on your heritage. What I found is living up there, and this is true with me, sports fandom skips a generation. So my grandfather was all Boston. My father, all New York. I'm all Boston. Like, so, and I found that to be true with a lot of my friends. So,
Really?
yeah.
You think is
It's
that
like a rebellion
does
thing.
Disney fandom skip a generation, you think?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Like, your kids will be Universal fans, and then their kids will be Disney
I don't
fans?
know about that. My parents were into Disney, and that's why we took trips to Disney all the time.
Your parents were Disney people.
Not in the way like Tom's parents are, for sure. Like,
But they were like, our default vacation mode is Disney World.
So we came to Florida so in all honesty, I think my dad passed. Like, so I can't even ask him if I wanted to. But our vacation was always Florida. My dad, I think, loved Florida. And I think for my mom and me, he was like, okay, we'll include Disney. So I think that was a concession.
Okay.
So we always did Disney. Now, I will say when Universal opened in, what was it, 89, 90? Every trip would include Universal. My dad was huge into that. He loved Back to the Future. He loved Jurassic Park. So he was like, all right, we're going to Universal. Like, in addition to Disney. But that did cut into our Disney time. So we didn't spend as much time at Disney.
So do you think that Yankee fans are more prone to be Universal fans, and Red Sox fans are more prone to be Disney people?
I mean, maybe, but I mean, Tom would disagree with me because Tom is a Yankee fan, and so is his dad.
But he grew up in the Bronx.
He grew up in the Bronx, right? I don't know. That'd be an interesting thing to look up. But I'll be honest. I mean, like, my history, like, I grew up loving the Disney parks, loving Epcot, loving, like, and I think like any kid, like, I was like, oh, Epcot Future World, oh, do we have to go to World Showcase? There's nothing there for me. That's boring. I remember that. Like, I remember not wanting to go to the World Showcase and just wanting to stay in Future World. I remember the fights about, like, in Horizons, like, which ending do we pick? And my dad would always pick the different ending than me just to spite me. And I'd be like, oh, no, I wanted the sea and you picked the desert, like, my mom would always pick whatever I wanted. So that was cool. So I think, I don't know. I think at a certain point I was like, ooh, there's this cool new thing, Universal. And like, I want to check that out. Because I think Universal came along at the right time for a 12, 13-year-old boy. Like, there's this new thing, and I want to check this out because Disney's not as cool, and I want to check out Universal. So I think that's why we also visited Universal a lot, too.
Okay, cool.
Like, partly because of me and like where I was. Yeah.
Were you always a hardcore Red Sox fan, like going as a young boy?
Yeah.
You made your parents take you like
Yeah.
games and stuff? It wasn't just like when they started winning in 04.
No.
That ruined the Red Sox fandom, right? Winning made them insufferable. They made them as bad as Yankee fans. No, it'd be like so I grew up a Royals fan, but I lived for many years in the Tampa Bay area, and it was like a infestation of pink Dustin Pedroia jerseys on girls and people like that rooted for the Red Sox. You're like, oh, really? Where in Massachusetts are you from? Like, nah. Where in New England are you from? My grandpa used to watch the Red Sox, and I'd watch them with him, and that makes me a hardcore. You know what I mean? And
I can see that.
I went to high school with the guy that played on the 04 World Series Red Sox.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Bronson Arroyo.
No, you did?
Yeah, I went to high school with him.
That's great.
He was. If you look at my high school yearbook,
Yeah.
the JV baseball team has Bronson Arroyo on it, and AJ Pierzynski. Remember him?
Yeah.
Yeah, he ended up, I think, going to finishing high school here in Orlando, but at the time was on my little town, my high school baseball team. So,
no way.
And there was another guy that was like a minor league baseball player of the year. There were like a ton of like baseball players on my high school team in a town of 8,000 people. But yeah, Bronson, I didn't know him, right?
Yeah.
I was a little older than him. I was in choir and stuff with his sister, but I didn't know Bronson Arroyo. But yeah, I think he's back there now, kind of just being a local hero.
Yeah.
He's made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And
he plays the guitar, I think.
Plays
or
guitar.
Something like that.
Yeah,
he plays.
And my former geometry teacher plays with him sometimes in the band. Joe Solomon.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Solomon, thanks for helping me pass geometry. Yeah. But
that's so
boy,
great.
that's a tangent of all tangents.
That is so good. Yeah, no, I was a Red Sox fan from when I was 3 years old. My grandpa made sure of that, even despite my dad's best wishes. And it was weird because, I grew up a Red Sox fan. I was like, wait a second. This is the losing franchise. And my dad's team
That's what made them a lovable
wins
franchise.
But I was all in and never wavered. And then 04 was
They were
fantastic.
kind of like the Cubs, right? You kind of rooted for them until they like won a series, and then you're like, okay, shut up already.
Well,
You got it.
I mean, now we've won 4 in the past 20 years, and it's amazing.
Look, I'm a Chiefs fan. I get it, right? Because now we catch all the hate that you're a Patriots fan, obviously. The Chiefs catch all the hate now because they've won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So I get it. And now the players were in the news for either dating Taylor Swift or driving 120 miles an hour on a highway in Dallas or speaking out at a graduations. I mean, they're just all over the place.
Well, at least it's not cheating, right? No cheating.
No, they're not
scandals.
cheating. No, that's a Tom Brady thing.
Yeah.
No, or is it a Belichick thing?
Well, it's both.
Is it so? No, I'll give you.
Both.
Was it Tom Brady? Is Tom Brady a cheater or is Bill Belichick a cheater? Or are they both cheaters? You could A, B, or C question, right? Because it's undeniable that the Patriots are cheaters. Is that fair?
I mean, if you listen to Tom Brady's roast, he basically admitted that he cheated and deflated the footballs. I mean, they're all cheaters. Sure.
It's just it's not cheating if you don't get caught, right?
Right. Well, they got caught.
Look,
and they paid.
We have a bunch of people that watch this and really hate when anybody goes on a sports tangent.
It's all Disney.
And they're very vocal, right? They're very vocal about not wanting to talk about sports. I get it. It's a Disney podcast.
Let's take it back to Disney.
So I want to talk to you about Disney a little bit because I feel like you had a seed planted in you as a young man.
Yeah.
That might have encouraged you to choose UCF as your college when you moved down here. Is that fair?
A little bit. So every year we would come from Connecticut to come to Florida and stay. And part of our stay would normally be the Fort Wilderness Campground. So that is the place.
Formerly the best Disney resort until they've started this new DVC push.
Right.
And pushing out the golf cart vendors and all this. Right. Anyway.
Well, so that is the place that got imprinted on me. Like staying at Wilderness Lodge, camping there, or Fort Wilderness Campground.
Well, there's a big difference between those two.
Yeah. Fort Wilderness Campground, camping there. And and then enjoying the Disney parks from there, which were obviously just Magic Kingdom and Epcot at the time. I think that was a big thing, like that we came down and made that a part of our vacation every year. We also spent the second half of that vacation always like in some place like St. Augustine, Florida. So we always loved Florida. So that's why Florida was a big part of like, all right, if I'm going to come to school in Florida, like the two places I applied to were the University of Tampa, which I don't know if you know anything about that.
Very expensive?
Yeah.
Very, very expensive? Is that fair to say that?
And UCF. And it was like, Nick, we could afford UCF. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's go to UCF. They have the cool like fountain. The front of their academics book looked pretty. Like there are pretty people walking around, like, you know, half naked, and I wasn't used to that in Connecticut. Like, we were all bundled up in, like, snowsuits in Connecticut. And like, wait a second, flip-flops and shorts and tank tops? What is that? Like, I want to do that. Like, and so I was just getting into golf. Like, so it was like, it was really cool. Like, so yeah, it had a lot of different things that play a part in that. Then I came down here, and when you move to Orlando, especially in college, you meet a ton of people that are like working for Disney, right?
Right.
Like, so.
Oh, you can get in free.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you got it.
I get it.
So I
know your angle now, LoCicero.
Never paid for Disney for my 5 years of college.
Right.
Yeah, 5 years.
5 years not bad.
Yeah, why not? So.
Not to stop you, but little Katie who works here.
Yeah.
Her brother Billy, her and her brother Billy are both members of the team. Billy's editing this.
Yeah.
Billy went to the University of Tampa. Their brother sister. Oh. She went to UCF.
Yeah.
She started working for us when she's 17. She's 20. She already graduated. She's already done at UCF. Like 3 years. She probably could have done it in an hour and a half if she wanted to, because she's just like smarter than us.
Yeah. No, it took me a while. It took me a little while. I stayed around. I enjoyed my time there. So, knowing people that work there, you're in for free as much as you want. It was a great time. Like, so that really cemented my love for that. And what that did, so that period of time changed me from somebody who was just like, oh, this is a fun time, to, oh, look at everything that goes into these parks.
Right.
Let me, like, not just enjoy it as a tourist. Let me enjoy it as somebody who can, like, how is the Hall of Presidents created? Like, how is it run? Like, what goes behind that? Like, what goes behind these shows that I'm watching? Right. How is Pirates of the Caribbean built? Like, what goes into all these animatronics? What goes into...
How do they control the current? How do they...
Really?
Yeah.
Like, so I got really into that. And that's what cemented me as, like, a Disney fanatic. Like, all right, not just going... Because you know this. You hear this probably from people who aren't really going to the parks all the time. Like, why do you go all the time? Like, what does it matter? Like, what do you... Like, it's just going on the same rides over and over again. Well, no, it's different than that. Like, we take it to a different level, right? Like, we take it...
Right, like, I barely go on rides at all.
Right. Now I don't, right? Yeah. Like, now we barely go on rides at all because we just enjoy the kind of idea or essence of the park. And that's what I got into. And
I enjoy walking through a fantasy creation, right?
Yeah.
Just existing within this kind of bizarre but interesting fantasy world that someone's created. And it doesn't have to be Fantasyland or something with princes and princesses and stuff. But like Hollywood Studios, I can go there and be like, oh, yeah. Even Grand Avenue, the much hated Grand Avenue, I can go there and hang out. Like, I just enjoy that. And I think that's what a lot of people get hooked on is not just rides and fun and all that, but existing in a place that is imaginary, because you exist in the real world all day long, all week long. Yeah. Right.
So that was the point where I got hooked on the Imagineering, like, part of it. I didn't really know about that or understand that or watch those videos or watch those shows until I was there, like, every day, and I was like, oh my God, it's the people. Like to see these cast members and to know these cast members that were going there every day and like doing this and coming back and saying, this is the most enjoyable thing, like to make this magic for people. And I'm like, okay, let me understand that a little bit better. Now that I'm going every day, like, or a couple times a week, like I don't have to worry about like getting on Space Mountain every time, right? I could like walk around and just try to understand how things operate, how things are moving, how things are like, and I got all those Imagineering books and all the different books, like on the different theming things they did and the forced perspective. That's where I learned about forced perspective and all that fun stuff about like, oh, you know, we make this look like this, but if you walk like 10 feet this way, it'll look different, and the color schemes and the fleur de light and all that fun stuff. Like all that fun stuff that we learn as really hardcore Disney park fans. Like that's where I learned that. And then I wanted to know more. Then I craved that, right? Like then I was like, where can I learn more about this? And obviously the internet, and there are things coming along, and you know, eventually that's what led me to WDWNT.
I want to hear that story because I kind of know it, but essentially, I guess I could let you tell the story, but I will make up this part.
Oh boy.
Nick graduated from college and got a job with a radio station. Is that a fair beginning to the story?
That's a beginning, yeah. Yeah.
And Nick was often tasked with looking deeper into stories about, you know, hey, who are these people? Hey, let me call this company because I know that they know about Disney news and they can help keep me up to speed with what's going on and get a quote from them. And then you built through that sort of a connection to Tom. Is that?
I mean, close.
You can probably tell it way better than me.
Yeah, no. You're close because so I worked with local Orlando radio stations. I was obsessed with radio. I was obsessed with audio. I was obsessed with the audio medium. In college, I would make like audio dramas, you know, from
right.
like that you think like back in the 20s and 30s of radio. Like I'd make these audio dramas. Maybe I could dig it up someday. I made like this entire audio drama based on soda. And based in the Star Wars universe, so it's called
Come on,
it was called Soda Wars, and it was this audio documentary about Coke versus Pepsi.
You made this when you were
in the early 2000s. Yeah.
Oh, like were you an adult?
But I was in college.
Okay,
I was in college. So it was like Coke versus Pepsi, and like. It was like light side versus dark side. Coke was the light side. Pepsi was the dark side. And it was like complete with sound effects, all the different Coke and Pepsi products fighting against each other. It was crazy. So like I was always into audio, and I was always into like morning radio and all that stuff. So I thought I wanted to get into audio and radio. And coming out of college, I got into podcasting and things like that. Okay. And I got hired by local radio stations to do audio production, that sort of thing. So my love of Disney, I was like, look, there is no real hardcore audio program for Disney, right? Like for Disney World. Like we're in Orlando, and there's no one doing local content consistently on what's going on at the Orlando parks. And
right, so there's an ecosystem at this time, like the Disney Podcast Network. These are all people that are not they're not all not local, but this is an online thing, and you are now in broadcast radio medium. There's no one in broadcast medium doing this.
And the podcasts are really just in the infancy. Like I would say WDWNT News Today, that podcast was just like 1 or 2 years old. Very new. Like, so all of this was new. And so I was like, well, why isn't something on the local airwaves in Orlando about Disney? And I was listening to everything, right? I was listening to Tom's podcast and a lot of other podcasts we won't mention here, but I was listening to everything, right? Tom's content
Hold on.
is.
What was the best podcast of the early 2000s about Disney, and why was it Trapped on Vacation with Earl?
Oh my! It certainly wasn't. But
Come on, yes, it was.
it was.
Yes.
All right.
Trapped on Vacation with Earl was the best
All
one.
right. Fair enough.
Because he was not afraid to stray away from the core content, which was
okay.
Disney.
Yeah.
He was more like this, where you might just be drinking barrel-proof bourbon in crushed ice in a solo cup. You never know.
Gosh.
Anyway.
In a solo cup, yeah. Don't get me started on the solo cups. All right. So it was, I was listening to Tom, and I would be like, all right, like one of my favorite things is AM radio, like local radio or FM radio, like where they're doing bits and they're writing spoof commercials and just being zany and fun, but like kind of clean fun too.
Yeah.
Like not like I was never into like the Howard Stern.
Right, I get it.
And it was like kind of fun, clean fun. And Tom was doing that on his podcast, right? Like I would listen to his podcast and they'd have like these spoof commercials and they'd have these fun characters and they'd do voices and they'd do all this stuff. So it wasn't just bringing me the news, it was also all this other stuff. So I really enjoyed that, and that's what I got like attracted to there.
All right. So before we move on, I have in my garage. You okay?
Yeah, I think I'm okay. I just had to take it. Yeah, a lot of talking. And
I have in my
Driveways.
garage a box that I brought back. As you know, my brother Andy, who you know, passed away in January. And in his apartment, when unfortunately I had to go clean it out and stuff, there was a box of tapes.
Okay.
And we used to make tapes
wow.
crazy. So I have this box full of tapes that I desperately want to listen to, but also don't know if I can emotionally handle listening to them right now. That I'm just hoping that they're the ones that I remember.
Yeah.
And they're not well labeled, right? We were kids. But that's what you did as a kid, I think, when growing up. I grew up in the 80s.
Totally.
Was making tapes.
So many of those.
Right? So I still remember there's a tape, and I don't know, we had a character named Bear Blow My Nose. Who cares? His name was Bear Blow My Nose. And at some point, my uncle bursts into the room because he hears my cousins arguing. They happen to be over. We were at their house, actually. And he goes, what's going on in here? And you hear little me say, we're making good tapes, which is debatable.
Very debatable.
And an argument ensues amongst the kids, and then you just hear my uncle go, up and out before I beat some butts. Indelible moment in family history, right?
Wow.
It's still a quote. Uncle has passed away, sadly, since then. Brother has passed away. But still, the rest of the family, everyone was there, remembers that moment. The up and out before I beat some butts. I've got to find that tape.
That'd be great.
Right? I've got to find that tape. And there was a moment when we interviewed my sister. We would do the ma'am, you do man on the street type of stuff. Know? Like, ma'am, what is your name? My sister, who's like 3 or 4, is like, my name is Butterscotch. We wrote a whole song. My brother had a successful band later, and then a kind of band that branched off of that.
Yeah.
My name is Butterscotch is the name of a song.
Wow.
And we say, what do you do? She's singing a song, I like to eat dead squirrels. We're like, why do you like to eat dead squirrels? Because they got tasty guts and fuzzy little butts.
My
right? You're like, oh, it's genius comedy at the age of 3, 4.
Do you want me to get my Soderbergh
my
tapes to Billy? So you can post
let's
them?
send all the tapes in. Let's have Nick's tape. I owned a domain. I don't know if I still own it. Goodtapes.com. We'll just put all your tapes on there. So anyway, you identify this hole in the market.
Yeah, well, I so I find Tom's content. And I'm like, this is what I identify with. Like, I think this is like morning radio, but for Disney fans, right? And so it was so weird. Like, I was just like, let me throw something out there. And so I send out an email. He doesn't know me. I send out an email to Tom. And I'm like, hey, Tom, I live in Orlando. and I work for radio stations, and I've been listening to you for a while, and I'm like, look, I love what you're doing, and there's nothing in Orlando that's really Disney specific, and I could get airtime because of where I work. They literally give me airtime at an AM radio station in Orlando, and they give me airtime to air this, right? And so let's come up with something that we could actually air, like formatted and airable. And let's see if we could do something. He's like, you know what? I am coming down to Orlando, because he lived in New York still at the time. He's like, I'm coming down to Orlando for Star Wars weekends, and let's meet up while I'm there. So the first time Tom and I meet is at Star Wars weekends, like whatever year that was. And we meet up, we hit it off right away. Like we're like, yeah, like this is awesome. We hang out all weekend. And he's like, yeah, I'm planning on moving down soon, so let's do something. And so that's where it started. Like, that's really where it started. And then when he moved down here, I was able to get airtime, and we were able to put together a show. And that's where the concept of what eventually became News Tonight started. But first it was WDWNT, the radio show.
And I assume you had hard timelines you had to hit?
We did. So that was very hard for Tom.
Wouldn't that be nice to have
that? Was very, very hard for Tom, as you can imagine. Like,
if you're not a fan
no
of,
way.
If you haven't watched WDW News Tonight, it starts at 9
crazy.
p.m. Eastern time, and sometimes, 9 p.m. ish, and sometimes goes until midnight.
But he would do
it.
But we would do it. I'd keep him on track.
You would keep him on track. Sometimes the show can get out of control and last a long time.
Yeah.
Because among Tom's many skills, he has a lot of skills. Moderating a panel of people and getting them to stop something on time is not even on his radar. It doesn't exist in Tom's universe. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it goes a little long. I don't think that's a bad thing, because sometimes the greatest moments are in the chaos of a show. Sometimes the least prepared we've been for something has been where the magic is, right?
Okay.
Some of the things that we made up at the last minute are the best bits, right?
Okay, maybe.
You don't agree?
Well, it depends on what you're talking about. I would argue, Tom doesn't watch these, right? I would argue that, like, when we just keep babbling and go over time, no.
Mm-hmm. No, that's not good.
But when things aren't planned, it's a different thing. Like, when things aren't planned and we fall into something, that's a different thing.
I believe almost all the most magical moments I've had were not because we babbled on.
Yeah.
We intended to do something else, and at some point we said, let's do this at the last minute. It was not planned.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Man versus Park.
Right.
One of the episodes we were going to do, I think we were going to do Surrey bike rides. And then we had the time wrong, and we couldn't get all the people to show up to when they actually rented the Surrey bike. So we told everyone, show up there at like 2 p.m. And you're like, I can't be there till 3. Someone's like, I can be there from 2:30 to 3:15. And then we get there, and they're like, oh, we don't rent them out till 4. Whatever it was.
Right? Exactly. That was the thing.
And we said, let's just go do Toy Story Mania blindfolded.
Right.
And like,
we
just made up a thing, and it ended up being really good,
Yeah.
or what I think is funny. Or a lot of times, what we would do is we would show up with the intention of filming something ahead of time.
Yeah.
We're going to film a pre-show. We're going to film a commercial. We're going to film behind the music, and we show up. And we can't organize people, which is very frustrating for me, right? Because inevitably we need 5 people for this bit, and half of those people show up with a +1, and then next thing you know, everyone's babbling over in the, chairs, sitting in the seats and babbling on and going on forever, and nothing's happening. And Tom's walking around checking his phone, and I'm just like steaming. Like, can we please? Like, what is the plan for this? And I find out there's not really a plan, or the plan was kind of basic, or maybe we came up with something on the fly that was better than the plan.
Yeah.
And so many times that has been the case, where the thing we came up with on the spot is better than what we intended to do in the first place.
Yeah.
But I think I envy you in that you had a hard deadline. You're like, you have to start at X o'clock and you have to be done by Y o'clock.
Yep.
I think that I envy you with that.
And Tom didn't like it, so that's why the radio show ended, and we went to his own thing, which is News Tonight. So there you go. I mean, look, you can't keep Tom on the schedule as much as you want to. You can't.
He's like Mango. Can you capture a rainbow?
Look,
such as Mango.
I will always argue that the best kind of content is stuff that is kind of contained in its own little box, right? Like if you have a start and an end time, you're gonna be able to aim for the best possible content you could have. And I think that's where when News Tonight is consolidated into that little box, I think it's at its best. I think we do. I think I'll be honest. I think sometimes we get outside that box a lot, but I think we made a concerted effort. Here's the thing. I think we made a conservative effort to not do that, where we move discussions to this platform.
Yeah.
And that freed up time and consolidated the.
We can ramble here.
We can ramble here. So I think that's a concession we made with News Tonight. I think here's the thing. I mean, the evolution of all this, right? Look, we started the radio show, and then we were like, Tom also had See You Real Late, right? That show, and he also had a podcast. So what we decided to do is combine everything into one.
Right.
And we realized that's not the best way to do that, right? So we kept it where See You Real Late, which was a Tonight Show type show, would merge with the radio show, right? So we'd have news, monologue, game, stuff like that. And then we'd peel off the discussion part, right? And I think that's the best possible solution. So I think we've evolved over the years to where we have found the real key to success. I really do think we're on to something.
It's on us to stick to it.
With what we're doing right now, where we've peeled off the long-form discussion and kept in the comedy, the game aspect, the spoof commercials and all that into News Tonight. And I think it takes time to find the right formula. I think we have found it, and I think we're headed in the right direction. I think we're I mean, I really do. Like, I mean, this isn't like meant to be cheesy or anything, but I think we're really headed towards really great things with what we're doing with News Tonight now, with Panda Rob and the addition to all this stuff and all these comedic people that we're adding to it. It's great.
I think also we've had moments of genius over the years, right?
Yeah.
Courtney was in here. She's our social media manager. Some other people that haven't been with the company for multiple years, right? They're maybe in their first year or two. And they're watching stuff we've done in the past. They're like, oh my God, this is wild and hilarious. Why don't you do that more? And like, to me, I'm like, well, when I came on board, I had another job and this was my creative outlet. Now this is my job.
Yeah.
So I don't have as much time to dream up stupid bits and songs and fake commercials and skits and whatever. And I want to kind of get back to that. Now that we're into the new space, I feel like there's time for me to sit there and create a little bit, and other people too. It's not just me. But obviously, like, I feel like some of the best stuff that I did was when I had less pressure on me to do other things.
Yeah.
And so finding that space to do creative things, it's difficult, right? I come in right now with Tom gone. It's difficult right now because I have my job. Plus I'm doing News Today 3 days a week, and we got to do the podcast, and we got to keep the wheels turning. And I feel like we came up with some hilarious ideas at lunch today, right, Nick?
We did.
We'll see if those come to fruition.
I think we have some good things coming. No, really, like, it's funny because, like, Disney has given me so many different things, but like seriously, like, I know this is it might sound stupid, but the idea of creating wonderful cocktails that people love, I first learned that from Disney, right? Going around doing that. Then I went to other places and learned other cocktails and stuff like that. So I love being able to marry my knowledge of all right, these great cocktails that people go to the different lounges like Nomad Lounge or Ale and Compass and different places like that and enjoy those cocktails. And I'm able to bring expertise from other places where I learn how to mix cocktails and mix different flavors together and marry them with the Disney cocktails, right? So I'm able to kind of not only recreate what you might find at Disney, but perhaps even sometimes enhance it or change it or give a different flavor.
Sometimes you have to change ingredients too.
Right. Give a different flavor to what you might be used to just to try something else. So, and I'm not afraid to try different things. Look, if you've ever watched News Tonight, you've seen Tom say, this isn't good, or this doesn't taste like what I get at Nomad Lounge. And I'm like, look, this is my take on what they make, right? So sometimes I'm trying to perfectly mimic what they have there, and sometimes I'm trying to
take inspiration
from it, right? And give inspiration. So it's given me the outlet to do that, and I really enjoyed that, right? And I've gotten to work with a lot of great people. Pete is one of them. Sabrina is my current host, co-host on Liquid Magic. So when we do that segment on News Tonight, she's able to bring her expertise and her flavor profiles, and it's just, it makes for a really fun experience. I don't care if not everybody's gonna like every cocktail, right? So that's the thing you got to really
no, of course not.
Look. But if you could bring fun, if you could bring enjoyment, and I feel like I do on that segment, and gosh, it's my favorite thing here at WDWNT.
You are so infectious. Your enthusiasm, and you have this sense of humor that I don't know how to put it. You have a sense for comedic timing that I find hilarious. It's not there are people that are that just always have a one-liner ready for something that's not like you. You're more you can play something straight and you have an enthusiasm for something and in anticipation for building up this comedic moment. And then you look and you're like, oh no, Nick has an idea. And I wish I could do that, because when I have a funny idea, I just spit it out.
Well, it's so funny because you remember the roast of Tom Corliss. I said, you're one of the funniest people I know.
Yeah.
Because you could come up with those jokes on the spot. I'm not one that all right, we're sitting at Celebration Brewery. I'm not one that's cracking jokes to the table. I'm never going to be that person, ever. I'm not going to be that type of person that's just funny. I'm going to be that person that at the end of the night, you're like, oh, yeah, you're really funny. You made me, because you came in at the right time, with some stupid comment or some stupid enthusiasm, or you overdid something and, kind of played something off. That's me. I'm not going to be that person that cracks jokes and makes you laugh, constantly.
You are a perfect compliment, I think, to someone who needs to crack jokes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. You are the person that will let the other person be funny, and then you say something that tees them up to make it funnier, but somehow you are funnier than them in the outcome. Does that make, I don't.
Yeah. And look, I also, everybody will say stuff about me, and sometimes people take things that Tom says or anybody else on the show says, look, it's a character on the show. It really is. And I've played that character. And so if we're peeling back the curtain, I'm playing a character on News Tonight.
Right.
And that's not necessarily me. It's just
no, but he is a sensationalized version of you.
Yeah.
Right? It is you amplified with a couple of random stereotypes that have been added due to the show that you're willing to lean into for the sake of a laugh.
And that's the thing. Look, I'm willing to, because people, here's my take on life. Look, the people who know me, right? So I'm willing to lean into certain jokes and certain things and take things overboard for the joke. we did a stupid thing where I was peeking out behind like
All Tom's shirts.
all Tom's shirts and like stuff like that, and like I was like being creepy and picking out and like look, I love stuff like that. I love physical humor. I absolutely love doing physical things whenever we can do. But here's the other side of that, Eric. Like I have no idea what people know or think is real and what they don't, because it blurs the line. Like, remember when they dropped the alcohol bottles on the floor?
Yeah.
That was not planned. That was totally Nick, like, being clumsy and, like, we played into it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I dropped alcohol all over the floor. I broke glass. It was ridiculous. And we played into it. And it was like people were actually wondering, like, was that part of the bit? Was like he's supposed to do that?
Part of your charm.
No, I don't know. So I just do stuff like that.
I didn't like when you drove the maxi van and like almost killed us a few times.
So yeah, I'm not a bad driver, but yeah, no, I was.
No, you threw in a couple extra little moments there.
Yeah,
right?
I was swerving.
That was terrifying.
Look,
it's fine with me, though.
I do what I do for the
anything
bit.
for a laugh, Nick.
Anything for the bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like people that watch the show for a long time suddenly realize, like, oh, Nick's actually. Tom will kill me for saying this. Sometimes I feel like people arrive at the conclusion that Nick is the star of the show, despite.
Oh, 100%.
Right? It's like, oh, actually, it's kind of like Nick is the star of the show. And part of what makes it funny is that Tom's the star of the show, but Nick is the star of the show to the people that are like there a lot. Right? And people will have different opinions on that. I've just heard that.
Oh,
it's it's actually kind of like Nick is the star because Tom lets him do the things that make him the star. Is that a fair way of putting it?
Oh, it's totally fair, Eric. Yeah. Thank you very much for saying that publicly. I mean, Tom is the star of the show.
Right.
But Nick is the funny one. Nick is the one that people are like, oh, I watched the show because of you. Like, they watch the show, there are some people that watch the show in general, but come on. Everybody watches.
I felt like when I came on board, I had kind of free reign to, if I had a creative idea, I could just present it. So because of Tom and the way Tom's personality is, I figured out very quickly that the way to do something is not to go, Tom, I have this idea for a bit. What I think would be funny is to have this song, but what I'm singing about is how, there's a Spike the Bee spork somewhere. And then I think, and that's not a good example because Tom was at my house when when it first came out of my mouth, but something like that. I figured out that it was better for me to like record a song. Yes. And then send it to him. And he's like, oh, perfect. Or record a bit and do that because I feel like Tom's very good at shooting down ideas, but when Tom sees a product, he will like it if it's funny.
All of my best feeling moments on News Tonight were ones I did not tell Tom about ahead of time. Were ones that because look, I'll be completely candid here. I don't do pre-production meetings. I don't come and be like, hey guys, what are we doing?
No, you're just a talent that shows up.
I show up. I'm like, what do you want me to do today? Okay, great. What are we doing today? Okay, great. And I look at that and I'm like, all right, here, and here, I could do something unexpected. Right. Okay. And I don't tell Tom because I want it to be unexpected.
You need a natural, genuine reaction. Right.
So if and it's funny, sometimes we're on the same page though, like the peeking out of the clothes. Yeah. I was like, well, I'm going to do the script. And he's like, and he came to me and said, Nick, do this thing where you're peeking out. I was like, okay, well, I was going to do that anyway, but I'll take it up a notch and do something else too. Like, we had the alien encounter thing here, right? Like, and I was like, all right, like there's an
alien from Alien Encounter.
Alien from Alien Encounter. We had this tube thing that we created for Halloween, right? And we had it in the studio. And I was like, I said to without telling Tom, I said to Lucas, hey, can I get inside this thing? Like, not just put it beside me, but can I get in there and be with the alien? And so stuff like that, like, I wouldn't tell Tom, and I'd like be like, all right, we're doing this. Like, and so there are certain things where you're right. I don't tell Tom ahead of time, and I just like kind of come up with these really stupid things to plus the stuff that he's already doing for the show.
I think that's important because Tom's humor is more spontaneous.
Yeah.
Right? The more planned it is, the less funny someone like me or Tom is.
Yeah.
We're better when it's spontaneous. So I think you're doing a service to him, which is creating a surprise for him that he can then
play off of
and be funny.
Yeah.
And I think my problem with News Tonight is early on I was more involved in it because that was my job.
Yeah.
But now I'm pretty detached from it. I'll help throw a couple jokes together. I'll write usually like a parody commercial or something like that. And then I'm not around very much. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think like there's a lot of room for you and Tom, but I don't want to like nudge my way in there. But I also feel like when I write a bit, I'm a less is more person. So some of my favorite movies are movies that leave you wanting more.
Right.
So I want to keep a character sometimes to 30 seconds or a minute. Mm-hmm. I don't want to stay out there for 5 minutes and like ruin it. And I feel like that there's easy for that to happen when you, especially like SNL, like recurring characters. They usually are kind of like, there's a first one, people like it, and then the second one, they're like, oh, bring it back, and it's really good. Yeah. And then they just keep bringing the character back until everyone's sick of it.
Well, I'll give you an example of something that's very ad-libbed. Mm-hmm. Again, pulling back the curtain a little bit. Have you ever seen one of the Randy Newman bits that we do? So we do the Time of Your Life where Randy Newman, Tom as Randy Newman, sings these spoof songs to people on stage, right? And I'll often ask him to riff on stuff. Like, I'll be like, oh, Randy, you know, you were just telling me about this great time that you had with the Dapper Dans and you sung this song, you know, like, why don't you play that song for everybody? So I'll make him ad-lib. So I'll force him to ad-lib. I'll throw those things in there. Right. Well, it's mean, but it's also comedic, right? Like, it's like he's either going to fail or succeed at that, but it will be funny either way.
I think what's funny about WDW News Tonight is just these peaks and valleys, right? Because you have to throw a lot of stuff to see what works.
Yeah.
And what I love is that we'll have something that every now and then we'll be like, we have this thing and I know it's funny.
Right.
And then we'll have something that's like not funny at all. And maybe it tries a little too long to be funny.
Yeah.
And then an unexpected moment elevates it.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it's like, I think with any kind of like real producer, you could get rid of stuff and you could have only the funniest stuff, but somehow it wouldn't be as funny because there's no triumph without tragedy, right?
Sure.
So sometimes it's like, what's funny is that you just rescued a show that's dying, right? This show is dying and Nick or Tom or somebody rescued it with a funny moment. Yeah.
I mean, not even that. I like, to your point though, I try my goal in every show, because sometimes I'm given specific things to do. A lot of times I'm not given anything very specific to do in a show, right?
Show up and throw up.
So my job is to look at that show and try to find places where I could throw wrenches in there, where I could throw these little things in there. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Right. But like without them, that part of the show, I think it's a little stale, right? Like so I just try to find these things where I could throw an unexpected little twist into the show, a little unexpected like antic or comment or whatever. And sometimes Tom plays with it. See, here's the good thing. Tom and I are close enough and have close enough personalities and humors that he often takes it and plays with it, right? So most of the time I know it's going to work, but I don't like to tell him ahead of time because that's just our kind of shtick.
All right, we talked a lot about news tonight. I want to talk to you more about Disney.
Sure.
From our YouTube community comments, Tiana's Bayou Adventure is set to open at Magic Kingdom on June 28th. Which Inside Out character best describes how you are feeling about it? And I gave them 4 options: joy, anger, fear, or anxiety.
Joy.
Joy. You're excited, right?
I am. I really am. I think it's going to be, who knows what it's going to be, but I'm excited about I'm optimistic about the idea of something new.
Yeah. I think I am too. I will miss Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
I miss the music and the vibe and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the ride experience is not changing. I was very fearful when this was first announced that Disney was going to treat this like Pixar Pier. Like this was going to be projections and decals and the cheapest retheme possible. No. But for a number of reasons, I think, they have, it looks like to me, really pulled out a lot of stops. Like, the story they're trying to tell is a little convoluted about running a co-op and an abandoned salt mine and like, I don't think if you take a story that some people find offensive and then you make it about a salt mine, that makes it inoffensive, right?
Yeah.
Working in salt mines sounds like probably really bad work that you made people do that you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that part of it's a little weird. The story's a little convoluted, but the animatronics look amazing. I think the former Chickapin Hill looks beautiful with all the lush greenery on it.
Yeah.
I don't understand exactly what a food co-op is, but it's got a water tower there.
No, I like that.
I think I'm okay with it because my idea for Tiana's Bayou Adventure would have been called something different, but you're beignets. You're in a beignet boat and you're floating down the hot grease.
Oh, no.
Right? And then at the end, you plunge down in and you're shrunk down to the size of beignet and then sprinkling like powdered sugar down on you, and honey or something.
That's an amazing ride.
That would have been better, right?
That is so good.
My idea is better.
I mean, I like it.
It's not too late, right? They haven't opened it yet.
I'm excited because I think they're putting money into it, right? I think they're putting the animatronics into it, right? They're putting thought and care into it, and I still have the anticipation it's going to be a great ride because they're also not changing the track structure,
if
right?
There was nothing
it's still
there,
going to be a nice long ride.
If there's no story, there's no props.
Yeah,
it would still be a fun ride.
It'd still be a fun ride, right? So it's still going to be a nice, lengthy ride that I think has animatronics. Probably has a story. We'll see. We'll have to see. Like I love the. I mean, I just love the music and I love the characters in Splash, right? Like, regardless of any connotations that story has, right? Like, it was fun music, it was a fun ride, and there was fun characters. All right. Well, I'm totally open to change. I really don't care. I'm not one of those people that's like, never change this. Like, change whatever you want as long as you change it, as long as you put care into it, right? I think that's all of our problems with Runaway Railway. They turned it into something that was lesser than what was there.
Right.
I think, I don't know who could argue with that. Like,
no. If you think that Runaway, I'll be the first to say, great movie ride. By the end of its run, it was a skippable attraction.
I didn't care.
It was a skippable attraction. But you still have to put something in there that's at least as good as what you had before.
Thank you. Yeah.
And having spent time with the Imagineers that created Movie Ride, the amount of creativity that went into that, I really appreciate.
Right.
And even though it had probably was due for a refresh or something.
100%. I thought it was the older. There was a certain point where I didn't like that ride anymore, and I didn't really go on it very often, and I was like, this needs to be updated or changed in some way.
Yeah, I think a lot of people thought that.
Yeah.
And I think Runaway Railway represents a missed opportunity. There are things they do in Runaway Railway. There are cool moments in Runaway Railway. But I don't know, Jake and I were watching, so if you haven't watched our videos from Fantasy Springs, the Tangled ride, Rapunzel's Lantern Festival, I think so. There's a moment where you go in, and Flynn Rider and Rapunzel are in their rowboat, surrounded by lanterns, this emotional, romantic moment, right? Mm-hmm. And it takes time. And you go all the way around this rowboat to the other side. Mm-hmm. You go on Runaway Railway, and you're like, oh, look, it's a tornado. And it's like, you cruise by, you turn to look at it, and you're gone. It's just like, what are we doing here? And then you have this Technicolor, I would say, very bright, vibrant style that you've chosen for the backdrop and the characters in this story. And then you go into Daisy's Dance Studio, which has like an animatronic that's not a good one, and nothing looks like the rest of the ride.
Yeah.
In fact, it looks better than the rest of the ride, maybe because there's real props, but it doesn't match.
Right.
So there's an incongruency there. And then you go into the final scene in this factory where if you're in the last car in there, you don't even know what the hell just happened. Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh, looks, everything changed colors and everything's fine. And we're okay, well, nothing can stop it now. Here we go. Like, I think Runaway Railway is a fun ride, but I don't think that it measures up in terms of storytelling and the care that they should be putting into rides in 2024.
Yeah.
You know, Rise of the Resistance, yes, there's all kinds of things we can joke about with Rise of the Resistance. Number one, they leaned into the part of the Star Wars franchise that is probably not hitting like all the notes for everyone, right? Like, aren't you more scared of Darth Vader than you are of Kylo Ren? Yes, right? Wouldn't have been better with Darth Vader? Yes. Would have been better set in a different time? Yes. Does the story make sense? No. Right? You're a new recruit, you escape, and then you take an escape pod straight back to a secret base that they can easily find. They're shooting powerful cannons at you indoors while you're in their own spaceship.
I know you have a problem with that.
I have problems with that. And I have problems with, like, there are parts of the ride that don't work or don't consist. Some that never work, like the cannons going back and forth properly, and some that, like, you never know what mode it's going to be in. But Rise of Resistance is undeniably a fun story. It's some cool animatronics, some cool effects, a really innovative use of a trackless ride system, and then changing into lifts and drops. I can't complain about that. Runaway Railway is a ride that could have been built 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And it doesn't break any ground. It doesn't tell a good story. It's just kind of a mess. And I realize, look, people I love that ride. But they love it because it's just fun. They love it the way that you like riding the mixer at the county fair. They don't love it the way that you love something that's like an enduring Disney quality attraction.
Right.
And you look at the new 3 rides at Fantasy Springs. Yes, they're here on our channel. And those rides, they have storytelling, they have technology, they have, they seem to pull out all the stops.
Yeah.
The Frozen ride is way longer than it would be at Disney World. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched it yet.
Yeah.
The Frozen ride's super long.
It
has a cool effect.
It really is.
That makes you go, how'd they do that? Nobody rides Runaway Railway is like, how did they do that?
No.
They're like, oh, somebody got some
Like,
glow-in-the-dark
wait,
paint.
what just happened?
Like, yeah, like, I don't know. That's my opinion on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got to this, but I was glad to see that Tiana, they're putting in really next generation animatronics that move with natural motion, that look like they care, because they can't screw this up.
So let me give you a little insight into my journey into this kind of thinking, right? Like, so I told you a little bit about when I got to college and started meeting people and started having this different view of Disney. I'm not a tourist anymore. I'm an enthusiast, right? Like, I want to figure out how things work, right? I want to learn how things work. I want to get these Imagineering books. I want to figure out what makes this tick. All right, that gave me enjoyment for a very long time. And then I think like a lot of things in life, like I felt like this kind of pendulum moving back and forth, right? Like, it's kind of like, not to get I'm not getting political, I promise, but it's kind of like how we go politically, where we swing one way, way, and then we're like, oh, we got to get back the other way.
The further you swing one way, the further it swings in the opposite direction.
We go that way, and then, with our elections and stuff like that. Look, so it felt like that way with me, where I swung the pendulum too far one direction, because then I got involved with Tom, right? And now with that, and I never was into like reading a ton of different Reddit posts and blogs and stuff like that. But meeting Tom and knowing Tom, right? Then you start knowing things and
Right.
and hearing other pieces of point of view and so I was like, oh, now I kind of know too much, and now
It's ruined some things.
it's ruined some things. And then we got to the pandemic. And so the pendulum swung that far that direction. Then we got to the pandemic where it was like, I can't go to the parks as much as I used to. I am not spending as much money there as I used to. I'm doing different things. And it was like, does this need to be as big of a part of my life as it is? Right? So then I kind of swung the pendulum back the other way. And it's like, I shouldn't care that much about this stuff, like, right? Like
Right.
to that degree, to that crazy degree. And I started to like changing the way I think about these things. And so with things like Tiana, it's like where I might have gotten upset about that in 2018, in 2024, I'm like, no, this is great. Let's see something new.
Yeah.
Let's close the movie ride. Let's close the, Ellen's Energy, Universe of Energy. Let's close all these things and let's have something new and see what they can bring me.
Right.
Let's be open to these new ideas. And like, let's not let these things that I know, like, again, Tom told me, Guardians of the Galaxy, this is what was supposed to be there, and this is what you got. I don't want to know that. Yeah. Don't tell me that.
Just let me have fun.
Stop it. I actually enjoy that coaster, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be deterred by that stuff that I shouldn't know.
You don't want to go in and ride Guardians of the Galaxy and then think about like, oh wait, this is kind of making fun of what Epcot's supposed to be.
Well, right. I also don't want to go in thinking,
this is kind of making fun of things I love.
This could have been better.
I just would rather be like, I don't know anything, and I'm just happy, and I like it.
Yeah.
And I'll say that like it's about like following the news, right? We report on Tiana so much because people care about it. Our audience has told us we want this. So that when something new opens, I already know so much about it that there's no more discovery and like wonder left in it. And so in that sense, it does take a little of the joy out of it.
There's no more discovery. There's also no more. There's also like that feeling of, oh, it could have been this because I know too much. And now it could have been this. And like, so I really lost some of my enjoyment of going to the parks as much as I did. Now I'm getting back a little bit, right? Like, so now we're in 2024 and I'm just starting to get back to like, okay, I want to find my happy place. I don't need to go all the time. I don't need to go too little, right? Like I need to find that happy place of where I enjoy going enough times. I enjoy doing the things I want to enjoy. I don't let the things I shouldn't know bother me, although I kind of still want to know those things. Like it's a weird happy medium.
I almost wish that you could somehow block your entire psyche from knowing anything.
Oh my gosh.
What if you lived in a world where you knew that Splash Mountain closed?
Yeah.
And you didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
And then you walk in like June of 2024, and there's this new ride there, and it's Tiana's Bayou Adventure, and you discover all of it for yourself, and you can form all your own opinions based on your initial experience.
Right? I think we know too much, right? Like here in this community, we know too much.
You've seen the construction photos, step by step, day by day. Look, that's what we do. That's how I make a living.
Right.
So I'm appreciative that exists.
Well, I know you do.
But I think if I could lock Nick away in a box, or do something that makes it so you never.
Me in a box?
I don't know. Remember we shipped Spencer here? You know what I mean? Like if I could just keep it so that you never got any information about being locked in a box. No, if you didn't get any information about this, you could block it from your news feed.
Yeah.
And didn't know anything. I think that it would be so much more wonderful to find out. So in many ways, I envy people
Yeah.
who don't know anything and are just going to show up and get something new presented to them and be like, oh, wow. And I envy people like that. I used to say this with golf. When I played golf a lot, it was, who do you think is a better golfer? People in Florida that can play golf year-round, or people in Wisconsin who can't, but they sit in their garage or their basement and practice putting and chipping and their swing all year long, right? Because I live in Florida. Why am I going to practice that stuff? I can just go play. And I kind of envy the people that can tinker in their garage and basement all winter long. Maybe they're better. Maybe they come out better than me.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing is like, who enjoys the parks more? A local who can go all the time and just like really soak it all in whenever they want to, or someone that comes down here and doesn't know anything.
I've come back to the place where I'm enjoying it more, right? Like I swung the pendulum too far, and I know I did. And the pandemic helped me realize that when I couldn't go to the parks every day. And when I was like, I don't need this, and I don't need this news in my life every day either, right? I'm not one that is on the social feeds every day looking at news. To be honest with you, I catch up because of News Tonight, right? Like, that's my catch up. I know the news going into News Tonight, and I'm like, okay, good. And so that keeps me grounded to a degree where I'm not oversaturated. I could still enjoy the parks. I know what I need to do News Tonight, so I'm not out of touch, right? But I'm also like in a position where I can go to the parks and enjoy them on my terms again. I'm not oversaturated with the Tom thing, with the WDWNT thing, with the related.
You don't have to care. You have a full-time job. You're busy doing other stuff that's not related to
so I found my
parks.
happy place again. But it took the pandemic to do that, because it took the pandemic to give me a reset. Right. And now I'm like, okay, this is how I want to enjoy the parks. Because it was just this like build up, and before you knew it, it was like, oh my goodness, I'm like buying every single pin. I'm caring about every single thing. I have an opinion about every single thing. And I don't need that. I don't need that in my life. Like, I need to just enjoy the parks the way I want to enjoy the parks.
I didn't mean for this to get like to where I'm about to take it. But
no.
This year has been very difficult for me, obviously.
Yeah.
And I said on Facebook, I struggle with things like purpose. Right.
Yeah.
So it's easy for someone to look at something. Why are we here? All everything you love will be taken away from you. You can't run from it. You can't lock it away. That's life, right? And people say things like, "It's just theme parks. Will you guys relax? It's not important." Well, what's important? What is important? I don't know, right? I mean, obviously, family and love, and if you have kids or stuff like that. But like outside the context of that, like, is what you're doing more important? I don't know. We're all on a tiny ball flying through space, and we're all going to die, and we can't change anything, and you'll die, and the universe won't blink, And so I struggle with a lot of that, like thinking like about everything, not just theme parks. Yeah. So I've been in that place this year. Yeah. It's really dark, right? And you look for things where you can find something. So for me, what I get out of it more than anything is seeing other people enjoy these things. To see joy in other people brings me joy more than me going and experiencing them. So yeah, I like to see other people enjoy what they're doing. I do envy people. Like I always said I was envious of whoever got to see Raiders of the Lost Ark for the first time again. Yeah. Like I've never, I can't ever watch it for the first time again. I wish I could. But I love to be able to watch people experience things. So we have some family in town, and they have little boys. And like when we get done here, I'm going to go, and they're calling me now. Yeah. I'm going to go and hang out with them because I like, watching them experience this for maybe the first time or as children is every bit as important as any important thing you can come up with when you look at it in the context of the pointlessness of life and the vastness of space and the, you know what I mean? I mean, like, I know right. That's, I don't want to take it there.
You're totally right.
But I mean, but those are the moments that this is built for, right? So the work that Imagineers do is important. You're right. Because it does important things for families. And so when they do it well, they should be applauded. And when they do it poorly, they should be criticized.
No, I agree with you. that is But that's the thing, like put the importance on the right things. It's the memories. It's not the it's enjoyment you get out of it. It's the things you share with other people with it. And we get really personal here. I mean, there's somebody I met within the past year that loved Disney but didn't experience everything that Disney had to offer yet, right? She didn't experience a lot of this stuff at Disney, and through me and going to the parks, like she got to experience like all the different things Disney had to offer, whether it be the fun of the resorts, the differences in the food and the entertainment and the different rides that she maybe blew off, right? Like it was a fun experience. I got to experience that joy through her, and like that was amazing seeing that person like who really loved Disney experience that stuff for the first time, and it was the first time I really got to experience that. I don't have kids of my own, like so a friend of mine, it was fun to experience that through her, right? Mm-hmm. It can bring that. And that's what we have to remember, right? Like we're getting really deep here, but like
we were not intended to go this deep.
That's what we have to remember about these the parks. There are these experiences, right? They're not these. It got too. I don't know. I don't even know the right word. It just got too mucky. And like I said, like. Taking a step back during the pandemic and that time helped me put it in perspective of, okay, to enjoy this, I don't need to spend all this money. I don't need to do all these things.
I don't need a pen. I don't need a wishable.
Right. I just need to enjoy it. I need to enjoy the experience of it. And that's what I've gotten over the past few years. And it's been amazing.
Well, this got deep quick.
Yeah.
Nick, I want to have you back sometime because we're not nearly done talking about the symphony.
Right?
But
I mean, look at this bottle. It's not nearly done.
I mean, look at the crazy stuff that started coming out of my mouth with one sip of that.
No, this is great.
I really appreciate having you here. I can't express to you enough how much I appreciate you on News Tonight as a member of the family here and as the secret star of WDW News Tonight. I appreciate you. I think everyone else appreciates you. And sometimes I was so happy to see you today because we don't hang out enough.
No. I've said this to people I know, like I really, it means a lot to me. Like I'm literally touched, and I don't know if this comes across when I meet people in person. Like, so we had Stage 89. So many people came up to me and just thanked me for the entertainment, what I bring to them on Thursday nights, and it literally touches me. And I'm so awkward in those situations. I don't know what to do, what to say, and it's like, wow, that is amazing. And so I just want to say, people who I know it's a little bit of a crossover audience. I know people. Well,
there are plenty of people here who have no idea who you are.
I know there are plenty of people. But just know, look, if you do listen to News Tonight, or if you are into that, thank you. I appreciate it. All that stuff and I know you're out there, and it means a lot to me to know that, I'm entertaining you. It's ridiculous to think that the stupid stuff I do on this stage, entertains you. And it's amazing. And I love that, and I appreciate that.
Well, people appreciate those moments more than they appreciate whatever they do for a living.
I think, right? Yeah.
Right? Those are the things you do on your own time.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay people to come here. They pay to come here.
Right.
So that means it's something they care about. You do something that they care about, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
And if you haven't ever watched WDW News Tonight, there are old episodes on this channel, but all of the newest episodes in the last few years have been on WDWNT.tv. You can check that out. It's our sister channel, as they say.
Sure.
We're starting to build out a playlist of things like all the phony commercials that we've done in the past and fake personal injury attorneys. And I mean, the list name it. Name something. We've done a fake commercial about it.
Yeah.
We did the Camp Lejeune. We did the Camp Mini Mickey water.
Did.
We've done all of it. We've done it.
Ooh.
So I want to thank you all for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. More content like this, hopefully. And we want to thank all of our sponsors that help us do this nonsense. I know it's Tuesday where you are, but it's Friday where we are. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back after the weekend, hopefully refreshed. And maybe my creative energy will be recharged thanks to hanging out with Nick.
It sure will be.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. And then you say, see you real soon.
See ya real soon.